So cybercrime is lots of things, but one of the things it is ransomware. So ransomware, did you hear about the NHS hack, WannaCry? Well, there's WannaCry and there's Petya are the two sort of big ones that have been in the press. They came about because systems hadn't been kept up to date. So Microsoft, when they developed their operating systems, at that time, obviously they develop it to the best of their knowledge. Then cyber criminals take a look at it and look for the weaknesses in it, and they find a way in. So once they've found a way in, then Microsoft issue patches, they issue updates, and those updates close those doors and stop people from getting in. What happened with WannaCry is that the NHS had not patched their machines. They had not kept them up to date. And I would imagine the reason why that would happen is because when you've got a computer and it gets older, it gets slower, doesn't it? Then it becomes a pain in the backside because it's slower and you can't do your job. So then what happens is people complain about it and they want to make it work as quickly as possible. So they cut out all the non-essential things that they think they shouldn't be doing. One of which is patching systems. Because when Microsoft does its downloads, it can take quite a while, can't it, for them to come in. And, you know, I've sat there in front of my machine before now at times, and it's taken best part of 40 minutes, 3/4 of an hour, for it to install updates. So it becomes this game of risk, doesn't it? How much risk do you want to take versus what's the potential for a consequence to happen? So if I don't do my updates, is it likely that somebody will hack me? No, I don't think so. So you don't do it. The trouble is, it's so easy to hack these days. It's so commonplace. We can't have that attitude anymore. If a patch comes through, you need to install it. It has to be updated because otherwise you are genuinely at risk of something happening. Mobile phones. Who's got a Windows phone? Okay. And have you got antivirus software on that?
I believe so, yeah.
Good.
The IT department's here.
Good. Mobile phones can be hacked. Any device that is essentially a computer can be hacked. It needs protection on it. It needs to be kept up to date. And with the NHS, they really fell foul of it. They were told as well that they needed to patch it. But people get into this complacent state of mind when it comes to cyber, and they think it'll never happen to me. But, you know, unfortunately it does, and it's quite likely to, because people will just indiscriminately send out attacks to see who they can catch. And that is one of the ones that they catch. Equifax in the US, massive, massive cyber breach, all as a result of one person not putting a patch on that they should have put on. There's a whole other sort of series of, or catalogue of disasters that sit behind it. But in essence, it boils down to one person not doing their job, not putting a patch on, leaving the systems vulnerable. That's a real issue for people who are on their systems because the attackers have got social security numbers, home addresses, dates of birth. They've got all of the security information they need to sit on for 10, 20, 30, 50, 60 years because that information will not change. The home address might, but their date of birth and their social security number will not. That stays with you for life. So they can sit on that data for as long as they like, and they can pop up whenever they like, wherever they like, to come and take money off you. Social engineering. So who uses Snapchat? Twitter? Facebook? LinkedIn? Right. So social, they're great, aren't they? I mean, I love social media because you can find out what your friends are doing, you can see where they are, whether they're on holiday, you can see when they've been out for a run, you can see who they've been with, where they've gone to visit for the day. You can keep track of their friends, their family, who's had a birthday. And it's great when you're friends with people because it's nice to know what everybody's up to. But where it's dangerous is when you have people who are looking at it from a social engineering point of view. When they're actually not your friend and they can track you and they can see where you are. Now, I've got a friend of mine, he's a guy called Benford, and he is a digital forensics expert. So he, in essence, he works with major corporations, governments, all sorts of big players to help them to understand how social engineering works so that they're not hit by it. But I've seen him do live tests where he's shown that he can get into and find out so much personal information within about 5-10 minutes without ever having known who that person was. So he can get onto, say, Facebook, and he can do a search in Facebook for senior officers in the police in the West Midlands. Then he can look down there at which ones of them have got children. Then he can go and find those children. He can find where they go to school. He can track what they're saying. There's a little piece of software, and a lot of the software that sits at that level is free. So you've got sort of two levels of the internet. You've got the internet that we use, and then you've got the dark web. And the dark web is very real, and it's a very dangerous place. You can buy people's credit card details for like £1 a go. So you can just buy information that you shouldn't have. You've got cyber criminals operating there that are grooming youngsters who they see are good at coding, and they offer them incentives to code and to hack. And then they give them more hints and tips to make them better at what they do, and they give them more money for it. They run it like a business. So on the dark web, a lot of information sits there that we don't know, we don't get to see because we don't operate in that area. But it's there. And there's a piece of software called EchoSec. And EchoSec allows you on the internet to draw a ring round an area on a map. And then within that ring, it will pop up everybody who's tweeting, people who are on Instagram, what they're posting, things like that. And you can see all the little bubbles. You know, like when you go onto Google Maps and you put a location in, you get a little bubble. Shows you little bubbles of where everybody's having conversations. Shows you what those conversations are. And because we're creatures of habit, it becomes very easy to break into somebody's personal account because, you know, we find it difficult to put passwords together. So we use things that we're likely to remember, like car registration numbers or friends' names or pets' names, all of which at some point are sitting on Facebook and all the rest of it because we've talked about our cat and our pets and where we live and all the rest of it. And there's pictures of our cars on there. So they use psychology a lot to work out how we think and how we make decisions, who we work with, where we are, where we do our leisure activities, and they use it to commit crime. A lot of those, like EchoSec, works because people keep their location services switched on. So if there's one piece of advice I would give you, switch off location services because a lot of apps track where you are. Even when you don't know they're tracking it, they are tracking it. Facebook, for example, when I have Facebook on my phone, on my laptop, even if you're not in that app, it's tracking what you're doing. It's tracking the websites that you visit. Facebook is one of the largest consumers of data worldwide. From a business point of view, that makes it actually quite good because you can target groups of people that you want to send ads to. So you know sometimes you might have been on Facebook, come off it, go onto the internet, look for a pair of shoes. And then suddenly on Facebook, you keep seeing shoes, shoes, shoes. That's because they're tracking where you've been. So it's very clever ad tracking. And you could say that's harmless in a way, but the mere fact that that technology exists and works in that way means that somebody who isn't very clear about what they want to do, somebody who is a criminal, they can also do it. The bad people can do it as well as the good people. So you've got phishing, which is your sort of indiscriminate, I'm going to throw a line out, see who I can catch. You've got, oh, that shouldn't say speak, that should be spear phishing. That's an R, not a K. You've got spear phishing, which is targeted. So it could be targeted at a finance department. It could be targeted at an HR department, but it is a targeted phishing attack. And the criminals will have done sometimes some social engineering, some understanding of who it is that they're talking to, so that they know how to put the right tone to the email that they're putting together. And then smishing is your SMS version of that. And the trouble with smishing is that a lot of telecoms companies, when they put their security together, it's not always that good. So it's quite easy for hackers to hack into telephone companies' details, get mobile phone numbers, get the numbers of the banks. So when you get your SMS text message, it comes from the same number as your actual bank. So it makes it seem more real.